Hey everybody, this is Kyle, and in this video, even though it is associated with my song Strong, what I'm really doing in this video is talking about the connection between creativity and mental health. Now to get started, I'm not just some guy that puts music on YouTube and does stuff like this. Music is my side gig. My main gig is I am a teacher. I've been teaching almost 30 years. Yeah, I got good genes and stuff. But I coordinate a gifted program, and this topic of mental health and creativity, this is something I work with students, young people with on the daily. So that being said, if you encounter in this video, you might have some mental health issues on your own. Please, get some professional help. Therapy, some sort of guidance, counseling, things like that can take you a long way, way further than you might expect. Because for me personally, I deal with OCD, depression, high functioning autism, and maybe saying deal with makes it seem like that's a negative thing, but that's just part of who I am. And I understand that if you are in a situation like that, especially with depression, you feel like nothing will ever move forward. And it's good to have someone guide you through the process so you do start moving forward because, yeah, you can. Yeah, you definitely can. So to get started, let me give you a super quick summary of how the brain learns. Because if we understand how we learn things and how like mental health can kind of progress and seem to spiral, then learning how creativity can change that and impact that, you can see how these things are related. So here's my super quick summary of learning. When your brain encounters new information, it will chemically coat the neural connections as something like, hey, this is a connection, it might not be important. But if you use it again in a short amount of time, then your brain starts to change that chemical coding like, hey, this might be useful. And if you use that neural connection repeatedly, then it gets coded in your brain saying, hey, this is important, you need to keep this around. Now think about something like depression, for example, and possible trigger warning here. If you have something in your life that causes you to have depressive thoughts, you can see how that will spiral, because when you have those depressive thoughts, the more you have them, the more chemically important your brain thinks those are. And to me, that's always important to understand. When I have a student that is going through some issues, I try to explain this process. And remember, thoughts are thoughts. Yeah, you're going to feel like those thoughts are the most important thing, but thoughts are thoughts, and thoughts aren't necessarily real. Especially in today's world, you have algorithms shoving things in your face and your mind all the time. That's an important point to keep with you. What creativity can do for you is change that pattern in your brain and give your brain new patterns to focus on. And for me as a songwriter, anytime I'd have somebody's depressive thoughts, encounter a situation, observe a situation or whatever, I can creatively express things I might not normally get to do. And then sometimes in life when something personal would happen, instead of having these thoughts in my brain, I'm just swimming in this like vast ocean of negativity in my mind, I can start piecing some of these things together, changing those patterns, and put something new together. A lot of times in my songs, I approach my songs as little stories. I have an English degree. I used to teach English before I taught gifted, so to me that's just a natural way of expressing things. But taking these different ideas, and think about what I said before about your brain. All the thoughts in your brain, it's neural connections, essentially. I'm sure someone will probably, correct me or whatever, but I'm just trying to keep it general. So, these different connections in your brain. And if those are chemically coded to be more important than other connections in your brain, and if you start picking and choosing different points of these connections, you're going to create new patterns. You're going to create different patterns. And sometimes being different is all you need to break out of this cycle. And a quick mention of my song Strong here, because like I said, even though this video has a bigger topic, for this month I am promoting my song Strong here. When I wrote Strong, I wrote a bunch of other songs. Honestly, they were inspired largely by TikTok. I was thinking of trends, the language of TikTok and things like that, how people describe things. And I wanted to incorporate some of that because I'm kind of a language nerd, like I said, teaching English and stuff, languages are interesting to me. And also I had some other things I was trying to resolve and get out of my brain. And this aspect of expressing thoughts instead of keeping them internal, that's really important. A lot of songs I wrote at this time had a lot of negativity and things like that, which I will mention in just a little bit, because I can see the idea of, hey, if I'm expressing negativity anytime I see this, I'm going to have this negative trigger again. Not necessarily, but again, I'll mention that in just a minute. But I had this group of songs that, were kind of downer songs about being broken, about trying to find hope and things like that. And in the middle of that group of songs, I wrote Strong, because I wanted to give a message to myself. This idea of expression through creativity. Sometimes you just need to tell yourself, hey, you will be okay. Hey, you are strong. Hey, you can make it through. And to quote part of my song Strong, I had to get up and look at the words, because I went to Sam, I'm like, I am so forgetful about lyrics and stuff. But the chorus goes, I'm strong. I've made up my mind. Who cares who's wrong? You live your life. I'll live mine. And sometimes we forget the power we have for ourselves to give ourselves a message. Sometimes we always seek out people like, hey, I need somebody to lift me up. I need someone to give me strength. I need someone to lean on, which is a whole other song. But the point is, we can give ourselves those messages too. I understand where, thinking like, hey, pepping up yourself, that seems not as important. And that's cool. I get that. I, can't disagree with that necessarily. But don't forget, giving yourself a good message can be very powerful in itself too. So on a topic of what if your creation causes you to spiral? But here's one thing to remember. As you are practicing, there's an important word there, practicing processing some of these thoughts of your brain. And as you practice expressing them, what your brain needs to do is process this stuff. And processing it takes time. That's why we have this adage, time heals all wounds, which, is true, and then you always have to say, to an extent, anybody that has been in a very dark place will say, hey, when you hear time heals all wounds, that is the absolute stupidest thing someone could tell you, because at that moment in time, nothing seems possible. Nothing seems to get you out. And again, that's why you practice processing. You're not going to do just one thing and poof, you are out of this state you are in. You're in some magical land where, hey, I'm able to control my brain. No, it takes practice, and you got to practice processing. That's not bad. That's part of it. And as you be creative, as you practice different things, you learn to express, and it gets better. It gets easier. You see more results, and that's a good thing. So let's wrap this up. First thing, thanks for hanging out in this video. I can imagine, depending on how I do translation and stuff, this video might have a language barrier. And hopefully I don't get a whole lot of interesting video like number 14, and hopefully some people are taking what I'm saying here seriously, because I'm trying to share some good tips that I've learned over the years, things that have helped me, and it might help someone else. So that's the whole idea of sharing here. I assume if you're watching this video, you have some sort of device or way to connect to the internet. There are many, many, many free tools, from Google Suite, where you can type things, you can visualize stuff on slides or drawing. There's plenty of free imaging apps. You can even go to like Pexels and look up different video clips or images. Maybe find an image and add a quote to it. What's something you're thinking or feeling? And even if you don't share it, it doesn't matter. You're expressing it. And sometimes that act of expression and practicing expressing these thoughts in your head, get them out of your head. It gives them a different life. Because sometimes the thoughts in our head really need to get out. Yeah. So I'll just leave it with that. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.